in this area have the biggest epidemic of heart disease. Biggest. Because back home they were eating to use basically a plant-based diet, and suddenly their food has become ridden with cheese and unnecessary fat and unhealthy foods with a lot of stressful life which they were not used to back home. Okay? So all in all together, it is a prescription for heart disease. Your genetic vessels are very strong, very small. You have a tendency, genetic predisposition for triglycerides and lipid metabolism, dysmetabolism. And when you create some of these things, it is something that we almost are not using our commonsensical thing. You go out in the West and the wild, and do you imagine that the polar bear or anyone will have to read some manuals to decide what their diet should be today? How do they figure this out? Or how do they digest and create and maintain whatever 50, 60 years of healthy life that they are going to do? We are not even healthy animals to start with. We have just created so much of intellectual cloud and confusion in our eating, which is slowly killing us. Because it's just commercialized. There's so much of money involved in convincing people to eat and telling what is necessary and what is things, which is driven from the taste, from the palate. That is the real situation.
Even in the natural foods world, there's so much pushing and marketing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Means.
An Ayurvedic reality show.
Well, yeah. Think about it. I'll be happy to help you with that. Yeah. Yeah. So it is right. Means at the end of the day, it just boils down to money, whether we sell this or we sell that. Okay, and so we are selling organic food, which is 3 times expensive than the normal food, because you want to become healthy, so pay a little bit more money to us. We'll go to our bank, nice and happy. Okay, but we don't have special subsidies for organic farmers. We should not have government actually supplying anybody who is doing organic farming. They should not be paying taxes, or they should not be doing this. So that is what needs to be encouraged. If we know that this food is more vibrant and vital, and we should encourage them to grow that thing. Instead of that, we are taking it to people who are doing organic farming to other countries and telling them, oh, you don't do that ancient old techniques of things. This is a nice new bag of fertilizer and it will boost your production 3 times. Do this. So, monocropping, okay, poor soil, unhealthy lifestyle, pressures, too much of abundance of food everywhere. Okay, this is something which is where you can't go in this country few hundred miles where you don't see any food anywhere. Okay.
When you go into the inner cities, the amount of convenience stores that are there are much higher than we call it desert.
Yeah. Food desert.
Yeah.
There.
This is in the country too, where you can't, like, in rural areas, that you can't buy.
Yeah.
Healthy.
Yeah, airport is a food desert, they call it.
Yeah.
All the airports are food
Right,
deserts.
you can't get anything.
Yeah.
Foods and
Yeah, it is. And so we can't blame those people, okay? And I'm fully in a believer of that. You can keep on whining about those people, but it's not about them. It's about you, okay? It's about your choices, your mentality, your decision making, your consciousness, which is going to change what they're going to sell you. So if you are constantly, and it's changing, it's not changing a whole lot with the speed with which we want, but it is changing slowly. There are more and more farmers market, there are more organic growers happening, there are people shopping into health food stores more often and everything like that. So it is changing, it is shifting, but it is not shifting in a manner in which that you really start looking at your own life under microscope and your own eating habits under microscope. And that is very important. You're still having a telescopic vision of, oh, it's not bugging me yet. When I reach to that stage, I will figure it out, or I'll do that. In spite of diseases, in spite of trends of imbalances, you are still not realizing that it is actually creating a bigger challenge and problem in your life. So obesity is a vague symptom, but it is a huge social problem. If you look at the weight loss books, if you look at weight loss advertisements on the television, if you look at, God knows, weight loss food packets, things, delivery systems, beverages, claims, everything is hinged to that. What does it really tell you? It's people are shouting from the rooftop, and it is understood that this is at the backdrop of everything else going on in terms of your health and your life. And how we figure it out is still very simple, whether we use an exotic herb somewhere else or whether we use something common. But it will all be education based. It will all be education based. Taking people to shop in the right places, helping them buy right kind of foods, educating them to read nutritional labels properly. Okay, Pravina, do you teach people how to read nutrition labels?
We have like classes, and when I was doing outpatient, I could do it. Now, when I do one-on-one, it depends on whether there is.
You should do it for all of us sometime. Do it for all of us. It's a great way to learn, because if you can compare things that, oh, this has say 160 calories, but out of those 160 calories, about 80 calories are coming from fat. There are 30 calories which are coming from sugar. There are only 20 calories which are coming from right kind of protein. So you know that this food is going to really create unwanted junk into your system. So even if it's a natural bar, what you buy from Whole Food, at the end of the day, it's just going to create a piece of junk in your body. And so by reading it, understanding it, it's a simple domain. That's why it is meant for. That's why it is claimed for. But nobody teaches why do you put it on there and how people should use it. So it's a good idea to do that.
There's no shortcuts to preparing your own food.
Yeah. That's a big challenge, isn't it?
Creating a lifestyle.
And it just needs a little bit of organization. We talked about this client yesterday who was just whining about even squeezing lemon juice in there. He says, I don't even have a knife. I said, okay, get a knife. Then a knife.
Wow.
The clogging of excessive fat in the body channels prevents the distribution of Agni, especially the digestive fire and the cellular fire, the koshta in the various systems. Excess of digestive fire in the stomach aggravates the hunger. So basically what happens is, because of the clogged channel, there is no disbursement of Agni happening everywhere, and so it comes back into the koshta. So there is this koshta or Jataragni, and this Jataragni renders itself to all the Dhatu Agni. Yeah, it's the same. All of this is the same thing. All of this is the same thing. So going to the periphery everywhere else, it is rendering its strength to every cell, every pathways and everywhere in the body. So what happens, because of the excessive fat, these pathways get completely clogged. They get completely clogged because it is unable to transport the necessary Agni to the periphery to help them digest. Because this Agni should give strength to the Dhatu Agni. Okay? And this should be supported by the Pancha Mahabhuta Agni. So when the food comes in, it should be livelier with the Pancha Mahabhuta Agnis present in that. It should have the quality of the alive, energy of the food available in there. If the food is dead, leftover, putrid, stale, yucky, it's dead. It doesn't have life in it. It takes more energy to burn. So number one is this food is too difficult to digest. Your Jataragni, whatever little strength has, tries to digest this food, and it is trying to render its energy to all the cellular tissues and agnis and everything. Since the channels are all clogged everywhere else, it cannot really transport the heat to everyone else. It cannot render the heat. So this becomes cold and damp and creates accumulated pockets of toxins and incomplete food and full of ama. And because of ama, all this peripheral becomes completely clogged and blocked, and that's the reason this agni remains in the koshtha, making you even more hungry.
Can you repeat that?
So since this agni is responsible for giving energy to all the cells and the tissues, but the way it transports energy is through the subtle channels, and those channels are blocked by ama, because initially the food was dead, the Jataragni was trying to do its bit, it was trying to supply the energy to the cells. Slowly the agni became dampened and it started clogging the channels. So it is not supplying its energy to all the Dhatuvagnis properly, and that is why it remains in the koshtha, and it creates a constant sense of desire to eat food. But every time you eat more food, you create more ama. It is trying to send its energy out, which it is unable to go. So peripherally, you are full, surrounded with undigested yucky tissues and toxic dhatus. But in the core, you still have agni, which makes you lively appetite. So the simple way to solve this puzzle or equation is change this food to a very light, full of life kind of agni vibrant food which is rich in enzymes. You reduce the portion of the food significantly and only give foods which are alive, healthy and full of life. You give a little bit more strength to your digestive fire and work on opening the pathways and clear the microcirculatory channels which are clogged and blocked by panchakarma, by detoxification, by cleansing. So you are changing your food habits, you are enlivening your agni by physical exercises, movements, activity, everything, and you are trying to detoxify and declog the channels which were blocked. So now you are eating less food, burning it more easily, transporting energy and rebuilding your tissues properly. And if you keep on doing it for a given period of time, you can shed and clear the whole system which is carrying this unwanted junk. Does it make sense? It is not as easy as I'm trying to draw it on the board, but that's how it needs to be done. That's how it should be done probably. So the excessive digestive fire which comes back into the stomach makes you even more hungry. Because one of the biggest side effects what I see is when I start people to tell them to starve and not to eat food, they say, God, I'm so hungry, I get hypoglycemic, I get lightheaded, dizzy and everything, because everywhere else is completely clogged and this agni is unable to gobble that properly. So you have to breathe through that initial stages of discomfort and hypoglycemia, and then they'll be able to do that. Yeah, means that initially there's more fire and you will be more hungry in spite of all the agni and ama. But if the toxic load of the ama increases, even suppress this hunger also. So that's even worse actually. So poor quality of diet, sedentary lifestyle, excessive oily, sweet, fatty foods, overeating, hormonal imbalances, hereditary diseases, stress, excessive or improper sleep, all of these reasons are for gaining weight. Kapha, body constitution, will gain more weight more easily. Pitta would be next. Vata would be different. And there is a difference where a Vata person, even if he gains 2 pounds of weight, he will feel so uncomfortable, God, as if he's walking around with cement boots or something. And a Kapha person,